My name is Alborz, and I'm going to talk about the iPhone 8 with you today. But before that, I'm going to talk about two of the projects that I've actually shared at this same meetup 4 years ago. That was my first time coming to this meetup. It was called Van iDevs back then. And I talked about what I thought Apple would be making in 2025. So they still haven't figured out how to make transparent displays, but the keyboard and trackpad are almost the same as the new ones they made. And I also designed something which I call the new iPhone. This is before the iPhone 5 came out. I thought they're just going to stretch the iPhone 4 and make it bigger, the same as Samsung, but they went taller. And back then, I had stereo speakers. We just had it on iPhone 7, so visionary. Right, anyway.
Why not show the ones you got wrong?
Go back.
What's that thing in the top middle?
Ah, that's a headphone jack. For those of you who don't know, there used to be this technology called a headphone jack. Yeah, it's an ancient thing. Don't worry about it. Right. So the iPhone 8. I'm going to talk about some of the questions that I had to answer for designing the hardware. Then I'm going to go a bit into the software and some of the problems that the current iOS platform and the hardwares have, basically. And yeah. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, what is it going to be the new color that they're going to add to their lineup? And the answer is really obvious. It's going to be ceramic. Because I talked to a couple of Apple engineers at their headquarters that have worked on the ceramic Apple Watch. And they said that they are very comfortable working with it. It's a very flexible material. And it doesn't scratch, not like the jet black iPhone. And people really need to stop calling it jet white. This is jet. This is what jet is. That's why they call it jet black. Jet doesn't come in white. It's like calling it black milk. It doesn't make sense. So don't call it jet white anymore, please. It's ceramic. They have a name for it already. Right. So and that's the ceramic. Great. So color is ceramic. Next is screen size. So how many of you here have the plus size iPhones? If you could show your hand. Okay. I'm guessing the rest of you have the smaller size iPhone, correct? All right.
SE.
SE. Okay. So the plus size owner, are you happy with the size of the screen on your phone? Not the device itself. Are you happy that you have a large screen that you're carrying around with you? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And smaller devices, you're happy with the fact that you can put it in your pocket and it's very mobile and you can manage it with one hand, correct? Yes. So wouldn't it be great if you could take the display on the 7 Plus and put it in a form factor that was closer to the smaller one? And that's exactly what I did. And you know, just the display and nothing else, because you don't really need anything else. That's what it's going to be. And I'm going to go through the thinking process behind that. So the screen size is going to be the same as iPhone 7 Plus in a form factor of an iPhone 7. The next question is the color of the front panel. Apple already has a device that is dedicated mostly to a display with no other element in the front panel, and that is the Apple Watch. And the reason they went with the black bezel is, first thing they did was change the display to an OLED display, so the blacks are really dark, and it blends in with the bezel. So you really don't have an idea of where the display ends and the bezel starts. It gives you an idea that the icons are kind of floating in the display and you're not trapped into a small screen. To see it more clearly, you can see on the black one, even though you can see the screen lines a bit, it's kind of liberating. It's free. You think that the icons can go further, but on the right, the white front panel is forcing your focus into the screen, like creating a trapped experience. If you ever try to watch a movie at night on a white device, you know what I'm talking about. So that means the front panel is going to be black, obviously. Right, so the front panel is going to be black. Next is home button. This is a big one. So you use the home button for many things. And Apple has been taking small steps over the past few generations of the devices to reduce your dependence on the home button. They have introduced raise to wake, so you don't need to click home button to wake your device. They have introduced Hey Siri, so it's hands-free. That part actually says Hey Siri. You can't hear it, but it invokes Siri. It's kind of nice.
I'm listening.
Hey Siri. And another thing they introduced was the force touch of the edge to invoke multitasking, which no one uses, but it's there. It's so hard, it just like hurts your finger every time you do it. And for Touch ID, Apple has been working on moving the, well, they've been patenting many different ways of moving the Touch ID behind the display. And it hasn't been possible till now because they use an LCD panel, and LCD panels are backlit, which means there's a metal panel behind it which doesn't let the light go through. But with OLED screens, because each pixel lights up individually, light actually can go through, which means the screen is transparent and you can put the sensor behind the display. And that makes it possible for Touch ID to be behind the display. And if you have the freedom of moving the Touch ID anywhere on the display, you can move it slightly higher, not all the way to the bottom of the display, so you don't have to do like finger gymnastics every time you want to like unlock your phone. So you can, you can put it where you would naturally rest your thumb on the screen. It doesn't have to be all the way to the bottom of the display because you're not limited by the screen anymore. It would be something like this: press to unlock. And you would need the feeling of a button, which is already there in the iPhone 7. It looks like a button, but it's not. It feels like a button because of the Taptic engine, and it's great. The last thing I had to figure out was how would you exit an app that you have open without the home button? That was my biggest blocker. The first thing that came to my mind was this, the assistive touch. But every time I see someone with an assistive touch on their phone, it just makes me want to put my finger through my eye and then like wiggle my brain around. It's so bad. I really hate this. And I thought, okay, they're not going to do this, obviously. And my next logical conclusion was, all right, so when you're on the home screen or the lock screen, you don't need a home button because you're already there. It's only when you're in an app that you need a home button to get out of it. So maybe if you add an extension to the display dedicated to the home button, that would solve it. But the problem with this is that it would sit too close to those apps that have a tab bar. And you might hit the home button by accident when you want to navigate through your application. Android has something similar, and that's why they use burger button, which is an inferior approach, which is one of the reasons I think Android is not good.
I grew up that way.
No offense, but it sucks. Right.
You know I organized the Android group too, right?
Right. Great organization. So it wasn't until yesterday that this graph, started circulating online, and it seemed to kind of answer the question of how you would get out of an application. They have a dedicated function area. But the first thing that grabbed my attention was this number, 1242. 3 years ago, when Apple introduced the iPhone 6 Plus with the at 3x resolution, it got everybody confused because the developers would have to develop at a different resolution than the device was actually on. So you would develop at that resolution, and the device on runtime would downscale the picture to a 1080p screen, because I guess Apple didn't want to invest a bit more money to have a native screen resolution. Like 1080p just worked for them and they just went with it. But 1242, and this was really annoying for designers too, because you would spend so much time designing a pixel perfect icon, and on the 7 Plus it would be blurred because there is downsampling happening and there's no way you can avoid it. It happens like on everything that's viewed on the display. So the good news is that now it's a native resolution for what you are developing and designing for. But there is another problem. The resolution is really tall. And remember that joke that started going around with the iPhone 10 was just like this really long device when the 5 came out? Yeah, it starts to look like that. And it looks like they're going to have another enough space for another row of icons. So from 4 row to 7. And it looks like they just keep on going with this area at the bottom too. And this seems to answer all the questions now. You have all the functions of a home button without having a home button. So a home button is gone. All right, what about the front camera? Apple has been working on a patent to put a really small sensor behind a curved screen. I think they initially did this patent because they were thinking of putting a camera on the Apple Watch for FaceTime. And because the edges of the Apple Watch is curved, putting a camera behind a curved display, it distorts the image, but they have figured a way out to fix it. So even if the glass on top is curved, they kind of use it as a lens element or something. Which means you can have two small cameras on top of the screen where it's curved, and because it's two, you can have selfie portrait mode. And this feature alone would have people line up. I'm really sure of it, because I'm not sure if you have played with the portrait mode or not. They're doing a really big advertising push, but that it blurs the background. It's really nice, but you know, I've seen too many people trying to take a portrait mode of themselves, like without seeing what's happening, but you need to be in a specific distance and it doesn't work. The selfie portrait mode would be amazing. I would start taking selfies.
You guys are all familiar with the portrait mode?
Yeah,
So it's using two cameras, one shooting in focus, one shooting distance out of focus. It assembles them.
Yep, it's really great. The results are just amazing. So for the front camera, there's going to be two of them, and the back camera, there were rumors that it's going to be a vertical arrangement. And just going by how Apple does improvement on the camera year by year, these are some of the specs that I'm just guessing. I'm pretty sure it's going to be spot on, because every new iPhone, they double the specs. So the frame per second for slow-mo is going to be double, 4K is going to be at 60 frames a second, even better at low light every time. It's like, you know, 60 megapixel, because they've done with 12 megapixel whatever they could do. Like, they've reached its limit, so it's kind of time to bump it to 60 megapixel maybe. And portrait mode in video is like, if they do it, I'm guessing it's going to be like 3 more years for an iPhone to have enough processing power to shoot live in portrait mode. But if they somehow manage to do it, it's going to be amazing. But I really doubt it.
It's still 32 gigs, right? So you take like one picture and you're done.
Yeah. So the back camera is going to be amazing. And augmented reality and virtual reality. For VR, you need 3 things. You need a remote control, you need a headset, and you need positional tracking of where you are compared to your environment. And for the headset, I really hope Apple does something very similar to Google's Daydream. That's not something you would hear me say often. Apple would do something like Google. But the Daydream headset is really comfortable. It's like wearing a hat. It's so light, and it's just a really nice feeling. I really hope Apple follows what Google has done here. And for the remote, Apple has created the perfect remote for virtual reality. The Apple TV remote was designed for you to be able to navigate it without looking at it in the dark while watching TV without taking your eyes off of the TV. So that's the exact same definition of a remote you would need for VR, because you don't have access to it. And for positional tracking, the portrait mode for the iPhone 7 Plus, it has already been doing some sort of positional tracking, but now all they have to do is reverse it to figure out where the phone is compared to its environment. And yeah, and that's why the vertical arrangement of the cameras makes sense, because when you are in VR and you're wearing it on your head, it's going to be horizontal, and that's going to give you the best result for positional tracking. And the Oculus and HTC Vive and the PS VR, all of them, they use outside tracking with a camera, with a dedicated camera that you have to put somewhere in your room, or a few of them. But inside-out tracking means you don't need to have that extra piece of hardware, because the phone itself is going to be capable of knowing where you are positioned in space. So tilting your head and moving left and right is going to be tracked by the phone, and it's going to reflect in VR. And that is the ultimate goal of doing it, and Apple has been making some really great progress, because the portrait mode, in the live, in the live view, when you're in camera, you can actually see it work in the live view, and then when you take a photo, it takes a few seconds to process.
You're doing depth tracking, and you're actually showing multiple images horizontally, but in the shot before, the cameras were stacked vertically.
Right, so when you wear them on your head, it's going to be horizontal.
Gotcha.
Yes. And with the portrait mode, actually, what Apple does is they take the 2 separate inputs of video, and they compare the pixels. They do some very basic pattern recognition, and they compare the 2 inputs to know the distance between each element, and that's how they get the depth of the image. And that's actually how they create the mask around the image, and they do, post blurring, because the lens on its own is not capable of doing that much of a blur, actually. Yeah, and for doing augmented reality stuff, you need a camera, which the iPhone has. You need object recognition, which Apple is really good at, and tracking. So basically, you look at stuff, and it's going to show you things on the screen. And they're good at it, and Tim Cook recently said that they're going to make a huge push into AR as well. So AR, VR, yes. Speakers. Has this ever happened to you? You go to Apple website and you see an iPhone in, like this, and you think there is 2 speakers on top and bottom. And at the bottom, you even look closer, and it says new stereo speaker system. But then you get your shiny new iPhone, Jet Black Plus, and it turns out this is how the speakers are positioned. One of them is pointing the sound out away from you, and the other one is shooting the sound towards your face. I don't think that's really stereo. I mean, they should have called it, we have now 2 speakers. So the iPhone 8 will hopefully fix it. Symmetrical stereo speakers. It's not that hard, Apple. So the speakers are going to be fixed. And the buttons, there was a really big discussion on the Apple subreddit about the removal of the mute switch. Many people were for it, saying even when it's in my pocket, I can just flip it to mute. And many others were saying all you need is a context-aware, application or an addition in settings, knowing when you're at work, go to mute, when you're home, not mute, and that's all you really need. And that would eliminate the need for a mute switch. And that discussion happened after I designed this, so yeah. So the buttons are the same, and the ports on the device. This is a patent of Apple showing how you can use a future iMac to charge everything that's on your table. This is a patent of Apple showing how you can use a future MacBook to charge everything that's laid on top of it. This is a patent of a future Apple table that will charge everything that's on top of it. Do you see where I'm going with this? So it's going to be wireless charging, and yeah. And I also made a video to show the final results like that.
Fancy.
Right, the iPhone 8, Apple, great. So, and that's for the hardware. The software now, iOS, there's one new feature that I think is going to be very crucial for the next iPhone to have to fix some of the major flaws that iOS has been having since iOS 9, I'm guessing. And I created a video to show that new feature instead of me telling you. Imagine it's going very smoothly.
If you have an Ethernet.
All right. So yeah, a 3D screen. Yeah. So that's going to be the. I'm hoping it's going to be the new feature because it's really going to help with the user experience. And I picked Mars because Elon Musk. So some of the 3D references that Apple has used so far in iOS are 3D Touch. It used to be called Force Touch, but I think since the Trump administration, Force Touch has a really different meaning now. So they're calling it 3D Touch now instead of Force Touch. And the parallax effect they introduced with iOS 7, where you tilt your phone and it looks like the background is moving in a different layer. And with the future AR applications which are going to be many. Before I explain what the problem is, I'm going to rephrase a paragraph from the book, The Design of Everyday Object, from Don Norman, who basically created user experience. He was talking about this scenario where there was a building construction and they had to block the sidewalk so that people won't enter, and they used glass panels. What happened at night was vandals would go and they would break the glass. So what they did was they switched the glass with wood panels, with plywood panels. And the next day, surprisingly, the vandals didn't break the wood panels, even though it was easier to break them. Instead, they drew graffiti on it. And the reason is affordance. A glass panel, the first thing that comes to your mind, the first thing that you think you can afford to do with a glass panel is to break it. With a wood panel, the vandals thought, I can do graffiti on it. The same goes to many iOS elements. An element on the screen, you can afford to tap it, or swipe it, double tap it, long press it, and now you can 3D touch it. When was the last time you saw an element, a button on a screen, and you thought, tapping this button would open an application? I wonder what would happen if I pressed it really hard. It's not a logical thing that you think about when you're thinking about a 2D interface on a phone. But if you create something, I unlocked. Okay, sorry. But if you add a 3D element to the interface, you can see behind some of the icons there's another white thing that's popping, and because it's in 3D, I have to tilt it to see on a 2D screen how it will look like, but in 3D you would see it in a different depth with like projecting a different image to each eye with head tracking and eye tracking. And this might not instantly let you know that pressing this hard would initiate something else, but every time you tap an icon, it would slightly be pressed and it would open the app. But even if it's only slightly pressed, you know that there's another level to it. So what would you do to make a button reach another level? You would press it harder. So this introduces that affordance that's missing right now from the iOS interface. Another thing that's missing from iOS since iOS 7, is that you don't know what it is that's interactable on the screen. One of the main problems that people had after updating to iOS 7 was that they didn't know what's a button anymore on the screen. And Apple had to add a new feature under accessibility, which highlighted the button shape, so people would know which one is a back button. And that is a really huge, major user experience problem. You know, the affordance was completely gone by removing the skeuomorphism. What used to be a button with shadows and highlights and drop shadows, now was just a flat text, and the user had to guess if they can tap it or not. But with a 3D interface, everything that's interactable can be on a separate plane. So you no longer have to guess. Imagine a control panel, and it's metal, and there's a text written on it that is in the same panel as the metal. Would you think it's a button? Not really. If there was a rectangle around it, you might think it's a button, and you might try to press it. But if it was extruded out of the panel, you would know for sure that's a button, and you can press it. And that's the same thing that having a 3D screen does. And yeah, so that concludes my solutions to the iOS problems. And yeah, and that's iPhone 8. And I'm going to put the presentation with the slides on my website later on, and you can find other cool stuff too.
There are questions?
Sorry, did I understand you correctly? You said in order to make it 3D, to understand that it's 3D, you press down harder?
So to make the screen 3D, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so the 3D technology, there's actually another Apple patent that I couldn't find to put in the slides. They're going to use pixel shifting to send different images to each eye, depending on how you are positioned compared to the device. And by calculating your position and the device's orientation in space, they would know what each eye would need to see for you to think that's a 3D image. Yeah.
Okay,
So
because I was just, because right now, if you were to press down, it just
right now, if you
wiggle,
press
and
it
now
down.
you would delete the.
Yeah. So right now, if you press, if you hold it, it would
Yeah.
wiggle and you would delete. But on newer phones, if you press hard, it would bring another menu. So if you press hard on the camera, it would show you the selfie mode, the video mode, and the slow-mo mode, and other ones. So that's the contextual.
Alborz, about the scanner for fingerprints. I had heard a couple days ago, you may have heard it as well, that they were thinking about using the camera to do retina scanning.
Yes.
Which strikes me as a much better solution, frankly.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but in the winter months, my thumb just loses it because it gets too dry.
Right.
And my wife can never ever use it because she just doesn't have fingerprints. But that's actually a big problem. Yeah, she'd be great for murder.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of older women who just don't have fingerprints anymore.
Right.
They're gone. Do you think that's possible, or do you think is that sort of a wild?
I guess there's like pros and cons to every approach,
Right.
but with the fingerprints, there's already methods of like 3D printing, not 3D printing, but using a special ink to print your fingerprint and
Yeah.
putting a latex glove and you can unlock it. With the iris scanner, and I also heard rumors of a facial scanner, but which 3D scans your face,
Right.
and it knows that it's you. But what if you make a clay replica of your face? Or if you 3D print your face in a small figure and put it really close to it, would it get confused and unlock? So there's many things.
What about speaker for calls? Like, so you said there will be like separate speakers, but what you're going to use for calls?
So there were many slides that I had to remove because I was going way over my time limit. But Apple also has a patent for putting speakers behind the display with what they call micro perforated holes. So there's basically holes that you cannot see, and the speaker would be behind it, and the ambient light sensor and the proximity sensor would be behind the display as well, just like the Apple Watch, because again the OLED screen allows for light to go through with sensors behind the display.
I thought it was a really insightful talk, and I really enjoyed it. I want to thank you for that. I would invite you to consider, though, that if and when Apple does release a virtual reality product, it's highly unlikely to be something you slot your phone into. Apple doesn't do that.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be a device that they're going to sell to you all over again.
Yeah. But so
Otherwise, it's great. I love it.
yeah. So the technology of what they have right now, the dual camera system with the depth sensing and the Apple TV remote, are definitely going to be in that setup,
I can
even if
believe
it's a
that.
standalone one.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be in a phone.
Yeah, that's a great observation. Any other questions? Thank you.